Here with me now is Democratic Congressman from New York, Gerald Nadler. And Congressman, thanks for joining me right now.
It's a pleasure.
You're one of those that voted no. What parts of it did you not like that you thought were better than a shutdown?
Well, I didn't think anything was better than a shutdown, but we submitted to the blackmail by the Republicans, as we did last December in that terrible tax cut deal when we extended the tax cuts for the richest Americans. There's going to be a lot of pain in this budget. We're cutting, in particular, this seemed to be directed at New York. We're cutting mass transit. We're cutting housing funds. The pain in this budget is infrastructure, is money for low and middle income people. And we're going to be voting on the Republican budget for a full year next week. And that's going to have a lot more cuts in everything that the middle class and low income people needs. No income tax increase on the richest people or on corporations. GE paid zero taxes last year. You know, we can't cut our way out of the recession. This agreement and what they're going to extort from us in the next few weeks is going to cost us hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of jobs. Everybody forgets that as recently as December, the president was saying that we shouldn't be cutting expenditures in a time of recession because that's deflationary. It cuts jobs, which this does. This will cost us hundreds of thousands or millions of jobs in a very weak economic recovery. It may, in fact, overturn that economic recovery and send us into a double-dip recession.
So as you allude to the president, and we saw a video of him running up the stairs of the Lincoln Memorial. Does he come out a winner here?
No, I think the president is lost as the Democrats lost and the American people lost. Remember, the president proposed a very small increased budget from the previous year's budget, and we ended up cutting from that budget $78 billion from what he proposed, $39 billion from the amount from last year, and he only proposed a very small increase, is what he thought was necessary to keep the economy, to keep the recovery going. I think this is a very body blow at the economic recovery, and what the Republicans are going to extort by threatening to shut the government down over the debt ceiling increase.
You're talking about chapters 2 and 3, which are coming up, but the president seems to be acting like he is a winner here, based on what we've seen so far.
I think he's whistling past the graveyard.
He's whistling past the graveyard. You went through the last shutdown. That's something that you had experienced. Do you think that the president should have let that happen?
No, I don't think the president should have let that happen. But I think that unfortunately we're playing the entire game within our own 20-yard line because nobody is articulating the fact that we should not be having large budget cuts right now. We have a long-term budget deficit problem, but that's long-term, and we can deal with that after we get the economy functioning after we get unemployment down to a reasonable level again. Right now, we should be worried about jobs, not about the long-term budget deficit.
Okay, good till Friday, no problem. You'll get through, you'll finish 2011. 2012, you got the debt ceiling also coming up in a matter of weeks. A lot ahead.
Let me say one thing about the debt ceiling that nobody ever says. The debt ceiling should be passed with no debate and no discussion because it has nothing to do with the future. Well, the debt ceiling recognizes...
You know that's not going to happen, though.
Of course it's not going to happen. But the debt ceiling, raising the debt ceiling, whether it's a good or bad idea, recognizes what you already did. The debt is going up because of decisions made a year and 2 and 3 years ago. You can't not raise it because then the government defaults. You should debate next year's budget. You shouldn't debate the debt ceiling because that's simply recognizing the legal obligations that the government incurred by the decisions taken a year and 2 and 3 years ago.
Well, the Republicans will say you cannot raise this debt ceiling. We need to be fiscally responsible. They have forces on the right side. The Tea Party is saying we can't continue this.
You have to be fiscally responsible by what you do about the decisions going forward for next year's budget and so forth. The debt is going up. The debt was already incurred by decisions made a year and 2 years ago, and whether they should have been made is for history. The debt ceiling simply recognizes what already happened. To be fiscally responsible is to deal responsibly with the future budget.
So, Representative, there are going to be, obviously, policy riders going to go on top of this debt ceiling vote. How are you going to deal with it based on what we've seen in this last 2011 budget? It could be quite contentious again.
It will be quite contentious because, unfortunately, there's a large element in many of the new members of the Republicans in the House whose basic attitude is anti-democratic with a small d. In other words, they won control of one house of Congress. The Democrats still control the other house in the presidency. When you don't win control of everything, you figure you'll get some of what you want. The other side wants other things. You figure you have to compromise. They regard compromise as a dirty word, and they say so. They say that any compromise from what we demand is wrong. With that attitude, It's going to be very difficult to get the debt ceiling increase, and it's going to be very difficult to reach a budget agreement for next year. And the budget proposal that they put on the table this week, that the House is going to vote on this coming week, would literally eliminate Medicare, eliminate Medicaid, and shift the huge portion of the tax, lower the highest tax rates for people making millions of dollars a year down by from 39 to 25%, which is a huge cut, and place all the burden on the middle income and low income people. And that's just wrong, but they're going to push very hard for that and threaten to shut the government down if they don't get it.
All right, Congressman, thank you very much. We appreciate you stopping by today. I know it's been very busy, very little sleep for most representatives. Congressman Gerald Nadler, thank you so much.
You're quite welcome.